Good morning. Welcome to Pivot Point. I'm your host, Barry Saccaro, and today we're going to talk about what some of our parties are doing wrong. I think of it in terms of not a binary system, but a tri-system. And it's Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. And Democrats, well, they have their own problems, and there are issues in leadership, issues in the change of leadership, and allowing new blood to get in. There are a lot of problems with Democrats. I promise we'll spend a day on that. Independents, I see the problem being more about apathy. And because they're not involved in the full process, they're being less involved in all of the processes. And they just know they don't want to align with one side or the other. But the Republicans, we're going to talk about Republican problems today. And I don't want us to look at them as specifically, this is Barry, the Democrat, attacking everybody else, the Republicans. I want to look at it like this is Barry, the moderate Democrat, having words about Republicans to other moderates, because I want you to try and fix it. I want you, if you're a politician and listening to this, I want you to say, am I doing the right thing? If you're a Republican, dedicated Republican, you got friends that are Republican. Discuss this. Let's look at this as an idea. Because as moderates, and that's what we are, and that's what we're hoping for, we need a more moderate approach. And we're having some problems with the approach. And so we're going to talk today about the Republican approach to governing and why it's right and why it's wrong. Mostly why it's wrong. Nonetheless, we're going to go in and see what we can do about this and talk about it. And I want to tell you where it started. I saw an ad. On the internet, and that ad was from Ben Carson, the leader of the sycophants on the Trump's first term, and Elon Musk, who's working with marketing, and they had a new product, and the product was really interesting. You put it in your nose, and it drove medicines and other products right up your nose. Of course, I began to laugh, thinking about what it might also be used for. But in this case, Ben Carson, that fine brain surgeon, and Elon Musk, that champion marketer, were working together on this product. And I thought about the third member of that triumvirate, and I pictured him driving a wagon, kind of Stoga-like, but shorter in height, and it said snake oil on it. And there they were, the three of them, selling snake oil together, looking to make $1 billion, looking to make another $1 million, or $1 billion, or something. So welcome to episode 9, and it's called Friends, Enemies, and Democracy. And here's the question. Why enemies? Why do Republicans need to create so many enemies? Why do they do this in a process where they're not even telling the truth? They're using phrases and words and catches that are creating enemies where there weren't. Why do you need to lie when this is what's going on? Let's take the issue that they're pushing the hardest, and that is the issue that relates to immigrants. They haven't captured anywhere near the numbers they've talked about. Everything seems to be a lie. Every story they tell is a lie. Every person that's singled out in these, the story isn't the truth. There's so many problems with immigrants. Why are they forcing themselves to lie? Why are they cheating to win? There's only one reason that a politician cheats to win, and that's because they think they're going to lose unless they do. If the Republicans are so strong and so steady in what they want, in what they believe in, why are they resorting to selling snake oil to us when it comes to the most important issues that they deal with? Let's talk about tariffs. There are people who believe in free trade. There are people who do not believe in free trade. I happen to not believe in free trade. I believe that tariffs are an excellent way to level the playing field. But they are the most dangerous thing to deal with among friends because they're generating hatred and anger. And when you mix that hatred and anger that they're already generating against different countries at different times and in different ways, that seeks to create confusion. Confusion in financial markets is a bad plan. Confusion in financial markets creates bad Christmases. And what's going on right now with these fights on the tariffs and which country is good and which country is bad? I'm sorry for laughing. Because if I lived in Greenland, this would not be funny. But Trump thought he was going to mafia-style muscle Greenland into aligning with the United States. Of course, it never happened because these aren't Americans. They are Scandinavians. They are descended from Vikings. They're not afraid of Trump. They're annoyed with Trump. Some people are, some people aren't. He's got places where he's popular. Places like Hungary and Turkey, where there's leadership similar to his. He's also showing that in Israel. And his support of Netanyahu is definitely considered by many people as central. And Netanyahu has said, well, I'm the leader and we are at war, and therefore everything I do is right, and we'll talk about it after the war is over. The war is not over. I hope we do talk about it when it's over. But Netanyahu is not a moderate. He's an extremist. And Trump is not a moderate. He's an extremist. As are the leaders of Turkey and Hungary and many other places, many of whom align. The alignment is being used as a justification for the success or the allowance of success of these right-wing governments. We talked a couple weeks ago about the idea that came from an organization on the campus of Florida Atlantic University that studied union. And it said there are two ways that we measure leadership in the United States. And they are based on what you do or based on the fairness thereof. And what you do is similar to how people feel about their union leadership. You better bring home the bacon and do what you're supposed to do as the union leader, and then we don't care what else you do. The Democratic Party exists on another thing. It was a system of fairness. This is what's fair, and therefore we're doing it. We're doing it because it's fair. If it was truly fair by Democrats, I would completely agree with it. It's not. And everybody wants to win and everybody wants to do the right thing. But to Democrats, doing the right thing is being the kind of politician that we want. And Republicans, under this MAGA administration, have not done that. They've done just the opposite. They've said we are not everybody's fair. This isn't for everybody. We have our friends and we have our enemies. And if you're on the one side of the list, you get something. And if you're on the other side of the list, you get something. Well, thanks. I will tell you that very little frightens me. But my wife is not from the same thing. As you know, we're Jewish, and we're mildly nervous about what extremists and right-wing politicians could do, considering the impact on our family and our people in the last century. But she does not want to go overseas. No travel. She says, what do you think? I'm going to go to Canada and all of a sudden we're going to declare war? I laughed. I said, Hun, nobody's declaring war on Canada. She said, really? That's not the way it sounds on television. That's not the way it sounds on television. And that is the problem with message. And when you look at a place like Florida, with its huge tourism base, this attack and attempting to bully another side to do something, especially as we look at tariffs and things like that, is costing us billions this year. Billions in investment, billions in tourism dollars, and yet it continues. Trump says, well, I'm from Florida. I'll do the same thing as our governor. Boy, that's a high statement to one person or another. I'm just not sure which. It was our governor who took off after the Reedy Creek, what we left-wing knew as the Three Rivers Development Corp. And it cost us $30 billion in entertainment investments that were going into Disney that no longer are. Nobody's making Disneyland disappear. But there were $30 billion of investment in media that were coming to Central Florida. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of taxation. That's a lot of grocery stores that aren't anymore because of these fights. And so as moderates, I'm asking you to help end the war. Countries are terrified about their balance of trade. It's a major effort. And tariffs interfere with the balance of trade. Absolutely. And so they're very careful. Trump wants his way, and he wants it now. And he wants it for reasons that he's not admitting are true. And so when we get into these discussions, these fights, these negotiations for tariffs, they're not going smoothly. The fight over quarter points and half points and points was the major fight. Now it's in 10s and 20s. Those are, when you talk about 20 points too high or too low for the wrong reasons in tariffs, of course you're getting something. And of course, why it is not being told truthfully, because it's not the truth. And if you can't tell people the truth of what you're doing, why it's hurting them, why they're doing this and why they're doing that, you're not going to be a politician long. And I promise you, I have Democratic friends who are afraid of the Republicans, fearful. Not just my wife who doesn't want to travel, but friends who are, I'm just talking about friends today, one of whom I want to wish well. He's having his appendix worked on. He's living as an expatriate in Portugal. That's shameful. Portugal's a lovely place, great place to go visit. But I want to live in a wonderful country here, and I want to develop a country. The message is good. Why do they have to lie? If the message is right, why do they have to lie? There are economic problems with the way that Democrats view the economy and taxation that are worth debating, that you're going to get more from than lying. That's not the way they do it, and that's not what's going on now. The message of Doge was a good one. The government had become too bloated, and that we were cutting back in order to use the money for something else. There was nothing wrong with that. But the way they went about it left them with millions of great advocates for Democratic and independent candidates who couldn't dare work with Republicans again. Who wouldn't dare? There was a community advocate I knew. She was from Seattle, and she talked about what got her in. She said, I went to meet a friend who I was meeting after a demonstration, and where the demonstration was, the police in Seattle had turned into a combat zone, and I was gassed with tear gas and beaten with clubs while I waited for my girlfriend after the demonstration. She said, I never started out to be a community activist. I never started out to be a radical. But when they beat me with clubs, what do you expect me to become? When you take a family who's a multi-generational government employee and you fire them for no reason at all, they all want to fight to change the government. I'm not saying that we don't do that at times. I'm not saying we don't trim the government. The way they went about it was painful and hurt many people throughout the United States, many of them in Republican areas. That's not something to be proud of. That's not the way you trim the government, because nobody wants to work for the government anymore. Keep attacking teachers. Florida, we are notorious for attacking education systems and teachers. Guess what happens with that? Oh, that's right. It's hard to find teachers. Nobody wants to do the job. Underpaid, overworked, and abused by the government as a policy of the government. This is what we do to teachers. Well, I tell you, keep doing that, people are going to change their opinion and become police officers, because there's no problem with the police officers disagreeing with the government and the laws, right? Wait, there is a problem. Maybe we better be more careful in the messages we put out about and to teachers and police officers for the same reasons. And there's an awful lot of other people. We recently had terrible weather in Texas. Tragic results. The big question we all have is, what did the changes in the weather people, the firings at NOAA, contribute to this disaster? It doesn't seem like it did much. There were other problems that come up. there were 5 meteorologists on staff as this happened, and it was more people than they usually had. And so it's probably not. But I don't think that the people of Texas think that. I think that the people of Texas who lived along the Guadalupe River and suffered that trauma believe that it's because Elon Musk, Doge, and Donald Trump attacked their jobs. Didn't matter what their job was, but they knew that the way these jobs were attacked left no choice but to understand that the government was taking away rights and information and protections that we had. So if that's what happens, why would anybody want to do it? You know, when Elon Musk began this, he's the world's richest man. Who's they? The people who I surround myself with, many of whom are Democrats from the baby boom generation who came from radicalism into moderation, as I am now. And they say, well, Elon Musk did this because he didn't care about America. I don't think that's how Elon Musk thought. But I think that's how everybody who Elon Musk fired thinks now. I think the effect of Doge's elimination of people is going to eliminate way more Republican votes, way more government goodwill than anything else they could have done. And I could have predicted it. Tell you what else I could predict. I predicted that everyone would see less Teslas on the road. The first 2, 3, 4 months of Trump's term, we saw a ton of Teslas. Everybody driving them around proudly. Want to buy a truck? They're on sale. Lots of used ones around. Careful if it starts to burn. Not a good scene. So, the effect of a good project, which if you'd have told the truth and done in a fair way, would have earned Trump some respect, has turned around and become the millstone around his neck. And the one who's really suffering is Elon Musk, who went at this with a smugness and a lack of care that showed he didn't care for his workers and made everybody disrespect all that Elon Musk has accomplished and has done because the messaging was wrong. Democrats are terrified of this. They are terrified of being thought of as not fair. And they do that because they got a big tent. That big tent that the Democrats talk about brings in everybody in one way or another. Left-wing, right-wing, radicals, moderates. And that's what they say. You may not like us for everything, but you can like us for how we do it. And so the Democrats, for a long time, pushed fairness. And they pushed it beyond what it could accomplish. Fairness. In the attempt to regulate immigration in a country of immigrants becomes something that people take advantage of. Yes, they do. And it's not fair. But that doesn't mean that we cancel the 14th Amendment. That doesn't mean that we stop people who are immigrants from immigrating to America. We are in a worldwide emigration. People from all over the world are going other places. People who lived in Syria are now living in Turkey, are trying to make their way back. And so the movement goes on. The capital of South and Central America, the capital of South and Central America is Miami. We have sent them products and messages and governments and assistance that hammered home this idea. Finally, the poor people of those countries got it. And so they began to come. And the Democrats, who were acting in a way that they perceived as fairly, came back and let them in. I don't know what else to do. Because Emma Lazarus set the anthem to the America that I know best. She said, give us, you're tired, you're poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuge of your teeming shores. Send me, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp behind the golden door. Beside the golden door. Sorry. Maybe This old English teacher doesn't remember his poetry as well as he should, but he sure remembers the messages of it. And Emma Lazarus wrote the anthem that great lady stands in the harbor, shining her light on that. I guess if I keep mistaking hymns and hers, I'm going to have to get into my apology and fairness to my transgender family. Yeah, that's right. Family. I want to be clear on that. This is not people I know. This is family. So you want to fight me on that? Come on. I'll be right outside of Space 8 Studios. Come here and find me, and we'll talk it out or not. Because I will not stand for you attacking my family, my religion, and the country I live in. Of course, the country I live in isn't behaving like it should be. And I don't know that I would give my life for it now. Well, I do. Even so, I still believe, with as much wrong as we see and as much wrong as going on, that it is my country, right or wrong. And I believe in this country. I also believe in the fairness promoted by the Democratic Party. And I don't believe in the unfairness and hatred being promoted by the Republican Party, especially the wing led by Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was a marketing guy who was given an opportunity to do something and turned that into politics from an unrepresented community. I want to represent that community, but I'm not willing to represent that community in hatred. I'm only willing to represent that community as part of love, as part of respect. That piece of the community must come from MAGA itself. And by the way, MAGA folks, if you don't know, Donald Trump will not live forever. I promise you that. And why, if you believe very strongly in his protective services, well, that's good, and they'll probably protect you. And I hope they do. Lately, I haven't been as enthralled with the Secret Service as I have been some years back. And I don't know that I trust my life to the Secret Service. But, Donald, you trust him? It's your life. Tell you what, he's got private security that have the ability to override them. And if you don't understand what that means, that's how businessmen do it. If what we're getting from the government isn't enough, you say, thank you very much, very important, and you add to that with business. The protections needed for politicians now are into 6 figures per family of politicians, and that includes everybody who works on election. You keep fighting for that, you're going to get it. You keep creating war, you're going to get it back. So I'm attacking Republican messaging, not the people who are giving the message. I love Republicans. I've gotten along with them for many years. I remember serving when I was with the Green Party, with Democrats and Republicans, and trying to find some balance. In those days, we weren't sure how someone would represent the independents. Now we know. They're not. Nobody's representing them. Nobody's giving them what they want. And they're not doing what they need to as part of America. And the Democrats, their messaging is just wrong. They're making mistakes. So with the three of them going on, why isn't I attacking the Republicans? And that is because with whatever's wrong with both the other two, lies and hatred are the worst thing you can do as a government. Lies and hatred are what we fought against. My father and I are proud that each other are veterans. My dad was in the Army post-World War II. He started out in Texas, Fort Hood. And in Fort Hood, African Americans were integrated into the Army for the first time in 1947 under Harry Truman. My dad was there. Talks about what he went through and what they went through. My service had a similar time. When I was in the Coast Guard in the 1970s, women were integrated into the main service. I had women coxswains, one of whom is still a friend of mine, and I get to chat with sometimes. I hope she'll hear this, because she was a great coxswain. And the integration is what gives this country strength, not the separation. We don't have communities we need to hate. I don't know who's told you differently, but men who realize they have been women all along do not want to beat women down in athletics. They would like to demonstrate their art and their joy in a fair way. But that's not what the attacks on the trans community is. The attacks on the trans community are designed to generate fear, are designed to generate anger and hatred. And why would you want to hate somebody? We're in Orlando. On my wrist, my left wrist, is a picture of a tattoo, a heartbeat, and it's in color. And it's a memorial given as part of a memorial with money donated to the community for the Pulse nightclub. And if you want to see what happens in anger and in hatred, look at that story about the Pulse nightclub and that tragedy that we of Central Florida have as part of our memory. Well, if any good ever came out of the Pulse nightclub, I can tell you that what came out of it was the community's understanding that their children were murdered in that savage way because of the hatred that had been generated. Two people who had their ears turned to that hatred. We are going to stop that hatred through moderate action. And that moderate action is going to take place because we care. Not because we don't care. Not because we're going to let it happen. We're not letting anything happen. We're taking it back. Our communities, be they communities of faith or of location or of region, those communities will come together. I told you my wife's afraid to go out of the country and nervous about the Republicans. I calm her down with the following statement. Calm you down with the same statement. I absolutely promise you right here, right now, that Republicans will not retain the United States forever. They won't do it. The Democrats will take the country back, and they will make many new laws and some of the same mistakes. Same with the independents. It's okay. We're there. We're there together. So I support the country, I support my communities, and I support good government. And I assure you that just like I assure you Democrats will come back and defeat Republicans, I assure you good government will come back after bad government. I was fortunate enough to spend time with Lawton Chiles, former governor of Florida, one of the last Democrats in that office. He said, I ain't a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an old coon hunter. Just like an old coon hunter, carry the right weapon, and I try and shoot the coon. Because that's how I prove what a coon hunter I am. Lawton Chiles, we called him Walking Lawton. So the thousands of miles he walked to be a politician. Truly believe that. And I'm not saying he was perfect, but I am saying that he had a feeling for his people and worked towards them. I have a feeling towards my people, who now are moderates, and I will work towards them. And I hope every one of you have people that you can align with and that you're standing with and fighting for. Because we can no longer just give it away. The country is too big and too mighty to not take steps to get better at each time. And the messages that are being put out by the Republican Party and President Trump are going against America. And I'm going to fight them. I'm not fighting Republicans. I'm fighting MAGA Republicans who are not doing the right thing. And I'm going to keep fighting them. And I hope so are you. But that's okay. I was born in Newark, New Jersey. A former mayor of my town I get to see with some regularity, but I get to hear about often. His name is Cory Booker. He was an All-American football player, among other things. He stood on the floor of the Senate and held court for 6 hours. Hakeem Jeffries came back and did it for 18. Those are leaders. That's not attacks. That's not being disrespectful like I can be sometimes. That's people who genuinely care. I know Cory Booker, I know Hakeem. Both of them genuinely care for their constituencies. And they perceive their constituencies as ever increasing, not ever shrinking. And they're not looking to eliminate people. And yet the Democrats are the most guilty of that. Because it was the Democrats in the fight with Hillary Clinton that we're the insiders. And unless you're on the inside, you don't get to stand with her. And that cost us not only that election, but in many ways, the election with Kamala Harris. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was my last congresswoman. And she got very far in the party, head of the Democratic Party for a while. But she was limited in how far she went by not supporting groups of her advocates. I can tell you the people that Debbie Wasserman Schultz did not support were the cannabis advocates throughout the state. Cannabis advocates who next election cycle will probably turn Florida into a recreational marijuana state. They are out there fighting every day. And I'll give a little shout out to my friend Jody James in Melbourne, head of the Florida Cannabis Action Network, who has been fighting for 25 years. Fighting every day. We're winning. And we're winning. I don't know what that means, but I know that cannabis advocates like myself and others feel that we're winning in Florida. Came very close last time. Very close. So today we talked about tariffs and treaties and relationships and how the way the Republican Party is functioning are tearing those apart. So to those allies of ours or former allies of ours, I say to you, we the moderates are coming back for you. Sometimes it takes a lot to find out. For a long time, Donald Trump believed that Putin was his buddy and that he could accomplish anything. Putin ain't his buddy. And considering what's gone on with the former governor and minister of transport from Russia this past week, for those who didn't know, according to the Russian state media, he was shot. And anything more than that, they want to hold back based on personal requests of the family. Of course, they didn't mention who shot him in the head. Twice. 2 bullet holes in the head in New Jersey used to mean something specific. They didn't have to cut out somebody's tongue. Those 2 small caliber bullet holes in their head, you knew what it meant. And you knew why it happened and what it meant. New Jersey had many fine qualities. It also has people who weren't operating within the legal government. And they had messaging too. And that messaging worked and didn't work. Times it didn't, times it didn't. So as we look today, and we look together towards what our future is, I ask you again to join me in this attack by the moderates against the extremes. I have no more interest in extremes of the Democrats, Republicans, independents, socially aware. All of this is too much. I've been a clerk for elections that I've been involved with have been spot on, no messing around. And yet, some of the people who knew that claimed, to the detriment of getting along with everybody, that this was a stolen election, or that was a stolen election. Nobody stole your election. If you don't understand what democracy really is and how it really works, and the only one stealing it is you're stealing it from yourself. Trust in this and with this. And if you don't believe me, go to work for the state and turn in your time during elections, because you can make the difference too. I want you to talk to your friends and neighbors. I want you to talk to your politicians. I want you to give money and participate. But then I want you to say, now, if you want me to continue, you have to do this differently. This, that. Those differences are what makes us a great country. Those differences are why I'm talking to you today. And I want you as part of a moderate army. I hate to use the term army. My wife doesn't like when I talk about guns and things like that, or even use metaphors. The army I'm talking about is an army of people, an army of schmoes, as people of the 50s once said. This army, we're going to change our politicians together. We're going to stop them from acting wrong, and we're going to put better people in there. Today, the battle is on the news waves, and you can change it by your reaction. We can use that internet to make those changes, to participate in those changes, to be a part of those changes, and you can be a part of that effort. And I want you to do it. I want me and you to do it together. I want to talk about the time in the late 60s and early 70s when we began to coalition together. And I want to bring those back, because coalitions are what's going to bring us the success of America we have promised our children. I lived in a generation that never got the promises. The baby boom generation was told, we're going to be the richest, smartest, we're going to retire with $1 million. Yeah, let me tell you something. If you want to know how retirement for the baby boom's going, go to a 55-plus community and see how many homes are for sale. People flocked to Florida to retire. Flocked. For all the years I remember, I used to come down in the 70s. My Nana lived in Hallandale. Look in those 55 communities. That engine that drove Florida so far. And look how the paint is rusting. And the engines make a bad noise. And the people aren't coming anymore. Of course, if you're like me, retiring, you'll be able to afford a nice manufactured home or something like that, live in an apartment. There's still wonderful opportunities. Government isn't acting as it should to bring these people down. I was in Disney recently. Very nice, crowded, busy, all kinds of fun stuff. Not the Disney I remember, though, in the 80s and 90s. Not the Disney I fought to see in 1971, where we could only see a construction project. The Disney that we all grew up loving. The Disney that taught us about the Musketeers and Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone. That Disney is taking a beating because of the attacks of one of our parties. Those attacks are going to end. We're going to end it together. And for today, I want to say thank you. I want to participate with you. If you've got a coalition I need to know about, please write to us here. And as you can see at Pivot Point, and we'll be there for you. Thank you very much. And remember, moderate in all actions. Have a great day. This is Barry Sacro, your host for Pivot Point, signing off. Have a great day.